Good evening, Bill Wadman.
Good evening, Sandy Robertson. How are you?
Fine.
Are you there in Bournemouth, England?
I am. It's very cold, but I think it's colder where you are.
Do you think of yourself as Scottish first, British second?
Yeah.
Do you think that's the case of everyone in the UK? They think of themselves as English first, British second, Welsh first, British second?
Yes, I think that is probably true. And I expect that people who live in England make the assumption that anybody who's British is also English.
Hmm. As well, they should. I knew that would get a rise out of you. All right. What are we going to talk about today? I've missed you. Tell me about it.
So you and I have both been in London, but separately,
Yes.
and we've both seen the same exhibitions, I think.
Okay.
I don't know quite why the experience of seeing the Anthony McCall solid light exhibition spoke to me somehow about some kind of existential issue,
Okay.
but it sort of did. Anyway, the reason why I'm mentioning this is not because we're going to talk about Anthony McCall tonight, we'll do that in the future, but um, it made me think of photographers, first of all, of course, capturing light, working with light, drawing with light, but it made me think also about how photographers capture magic or, I guess, identify our archetypes and spirits. And the person
Okay.
that came to mind the most when I was doing that was Duane Michals.
Hmm.
I mean, I called the show tonight Ghosts in the Machine, which I know is usually used in quite a past remarkable way about kind of Cartesian dualist mind body situation. It relates to the book by Kostler. Maybe read it. Um, but there's something always quite other about Michael's work, and something about how light, its reflections, its refractions, the absences and the presences in his work that, unlike most other photographers, maybe with the exception of Francesca Woodman, gets to me in some way. Anyway, I know that you know a lot about Duane Michaels, so what do you?
I mean, I know a fair bit, and I've met him a few times on a personal level. I his work always it doesn't. The word I was a bit about to use was irks me, but it's not that. Well, it does irk me. I like it a lot, and then I look at it and I think, how did he think to do that, or how did he do that? Not like technically how did he do that, because I could probably figure that out. But how did his brain come up with these things? Because my own photographic work is so milk toast and structured compared to his. His is
Um,
dreamlike.
it is, but I don't think he would be glad to hear you say that it's not structured. Actually, he's spoken quite a lot on the structuring of his work and why that's very important to him.
I don't. I guess I just structure is a bad word. I just mine is so one to one objective, and his feels like it's from another world somehow. I don't know. There's something about it. I don't. I mean, it's a lot of the way he plays with curvature and his stuff with mirrors and all the rest of it. Like he's playing with time, he's playing with space, he's playing with people within the frame. He's doing all of these sort of like I'll use the term tricks, and I don't mean that derogatorily. He's using like all of these techniques to like warp reality, but not so much that it becomes fake, just so much that you think, oh, I guess there is a moment where that thing that is photographed is true. I would just never think to look for it. And it makes me wonder what's going on in his mind underneath it all.
Well, there are a few things about what you've just said. Obviously, I immediately pounced on you talking or using the word structure. And as I said, I know that he's rallied against the sense that there's a kind of structuralist, or that his work lacks a kind of formal element. It's highly formalized. Not just because he likes to photograph in sequences and so on, but that he's using a lot of, as you call them, tricks. But also, even though he particularly loves Cartier-Bresson, for example,
Hmm.
he was asked by an interviewer that read I read him saying that he's interested in the decisive moment of others. But for him, I wrote it down, he doesn't do the decisive moment. And he said, but the moment before the decisive moment and the one after it. So those are the things that he's interested in.
Yeah.
And so there is always a sense that something is set up, but that, again, magic happens. And as you described, time is a huge element in his work, what time is.
Yeah. I mean, even what you just said, the moment before and after that, it's, I mean, you could also take from that implication that there is no decisive moment because his decisive moment is the anti-decisive moment to some extent,
Mm.
you know? Um, I just, I, it, you think that a lot of his stuff is more trickery than it is sometimes. And I don't know, I'm envious of someone who can see the world that way.
I mean, he does also own up to the fact that sometimes there are mistakes. I'm not going to show it here actually, but there's a very famous photograph called The Illuminated Man. Um, and it's his friend where, single figure standing with the face whited out really by bright light.
Hmm.
And that was, I think, just a trick of the light that wasn't planned. That part wasn't planned.
Does it need to be planned?
No, but it seems that Duane Michals doesn't like to be pinned down. I mean, he described himself as a bad boy. I see him as a kind of impish character. It's interesting that you know him on a personal level because although obviously we shouldn't in any way disclose something that violates his privacy, to me he does seem like he is playful and puck-like.
I think that that is definitely true. And I could see him wanting to seem more dangerous than he actually is somehow. You know what I mean? Like putting on an air of danger on top of somebody who you wouldn't, if you just met him, I don't think you'd feel that way about him.
Mm. I mean, the way he looks, I only know what he looks like through his photographs.
Yeah.
Um, and he
He's
always
quite an
looks,
old man now.
well, yeah, he's 93 in a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah.
But he always looks so kind of yeah, impish, pixie
Yeah.
look,
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
something wise as well in it.
Well,
Anyway,
dear, I also even well, hold on a second. But even him saying that about himself, like what he wants to project, or what he thinks he projects, or what he claims to be, that in itself, with somebody like him, I don't know if he's actually saying that truthfully, or if that's also like a playful, expression. You know?
but I think what's interesting is the way that I heard that was because he was very insistent with the interviewer right at the end of the phone call that that was his parting word.
Yeah.
I'm a bad boy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I would not think that, but I don't know him that well. You know?
No, but I mean, we're not here to, unpick him in
No,
that
but it is
sense.
interesting how people represent themselves, but how people represent themselves is sort of interwoven with the work that they make to some extent, isn't it?
Yes, and when we look at his work, um, I've gone a bit all over the place with my time. I haven't followed a kind of ontology in this that makes much sense. Even when he's photographing celebrities, as he has done many times in his commercial work, mm, there's always some strangeness afoot
Yep.
in a way that means that I think, or feel that he's looking for always the other side. And that's backed up really by the fact that he uses text so much in his work. I mean, he said about,
Yes.
using the text is that I can't remember exactly what it is, but to paraphrase him, the text will tell you more than the photograph can show you.
Yeah.
and he wants us to know. Mm, I love that about him and his work.
He's actually a true interdisciplinary artist.
Yeah, he's
He
a
makes
brilliant.
films, he writes over the top of photographs. I mean, he's doing all of those kinds of things. Um, I don't know. I mean, of course he is a photographer, but like, uh, I think of him as a superset of a photographer in a lot of ways. Like he uses photography to make the things he makes. I don't see him as a photographer per se most of the time.
So is he somebody that you would alight upon as an artist?
Yeah, I think he transcends photography into a bigger realm. Um, in my opinion, I don't know. It's he's hard to define. He is unique in the way that a lot of people want to be unique. Duane actually is.
Mm. Well, you know, as I mentioned, he's shot a lot of celebrities. He's done a lot of commercial work generally. This is for French Vogue.
Yeah,
Apparently, they called him up and they said, "We want you to photograph a piece that is about physicist Dr. Heisenberg."
yeah,
So, you know, some kind of scientific problem puzzled out by Condé Nast. And I've always seen these photographs. These have been really in my education uh, there since I started my degree in photography. They've been well used by my tutors and then now by me as an art and photography teacher.
he loves that convex mirror, the concave mirror.
Yeah, I mean, it's again your word trick. It's a neat trick. It's a neat trick
Yeah,
in teaching actually, and getting
yep,
students to understand the potential within a frame, within a frame. But what I love about this are the bits of text. So,
sure.
you know, Dr. Heisenberg's magic mirror of uncertainty. Um, you know, Michael's brought to that not just some element of the physical, he brought to it something of poetry, of crisis and philosophy, something phenomenological, all sorts going on there. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but the one just the top right says Odette can never be sure with any certainty which reflection of herself she will see in the mirror.
Yeah, what she sees and what he's seeing are two different things.
And then the next one, which is bottom left,
Hmm.
I think says the art of looking in the mirror affects which image she will see.
I would read it as the act of looking in the mirror, but yeah.
Oh, sorry, yes, the act. And then the last one, uncertainty permits the possibility of anything and everything.
If you had to choose, this is just an interesting little side note. If you had to choose the image on the mirror of any one of these six pictures as its own photograph, which is your favorite?
Actually, I did have one that I had put up big and I took it out, and I think it was number two.
Yeah, the middle top. Yeah.
But really, each of them has their own language,
Yeah. Yeah.
and each one
Also,
of
it
them.
is also interesting. The one where we actually see the woman lower right is also blank in the mirror to some
Mm,
extent. Like her face, you see the beauty of this woman, and then you see it as blank. Her face is nothingness in the mirror. It's really interesting.
mm. But Bill, this is not good enough for us. You know, we maybe a bit out of practice. We're a bit rusty.
Yep.
Go back to what you just said.
Which bit?
Well, you're saying here's this beautiful woman, the face is blank in the mirror.
Yeah.
So what?
No, it's an interest. That's just an interesting dichotomy of, the more we see her, the less we actually see of her in the mirror. Um,
So what? Go into it. Make something of it.
all right. Well, we are talking, these were taken for a fashion magazine. It's about beauty, it's about fashion, but like, oh, but the minute we try to do something more with the looking forward and being direct with what is the beauty actually removes the beauty from the, you know, the secondary art of the mirror and what he's trying to make of it. Um, I don't know. It's just it's there's another set where he plays with this mirror that I'm trying to come up with, but Think about it afterwards. We'll find it.
We actually didn't
Um,
talk really at all about the Cornell. I mean, this is 1970, so the other one was 1998. So he's obviously got a wide spanning career. I think for anybody who doesn't
yeah,
know Duane Michals, it's really important to know that, he's
he's been
been
around a long
around
time.
for a really long time. It
Hmm.
surprises me. You and I obviously know about Duane Michals. We can speak to his photographs really easily in one way, I suppose, but it has always shocked me outside of kind of enthusiast circles or people who are specifically educated in visual art. He's not known.
Yeah, he's. I think part of it is that sort of multidisciplinary thing that we talked about earlier. I think
Mm.
that there are for collectors, he's a big person for sort of late 20th century photographic collectors. Um, he's definitely more. If I hadn't met him uh, uh, a few times and had people have friends who know him, I don't know that I would have heard about him. But
Again, this is fascinating for me because I mean, his work for me kind of defines a whole movement of visual
what is that
artwork.
movement? What is the definition of that?
Um, well, I mean, there isn't one that I can
Yeah.
name, but as you say, the multidisciplinarian
Is anybody
nature.
else doing that?
Well, I mean, I'm looking at someone like Jim Goldberg, or these are kind of magnum type photographers.
Sure.
At times, I think even in the encyclopedia, what you call it, Britannica,
Yeah.
it does describe him in part, at least, as a documentary style
As a
photographer.
documentarian.
And that doesn't sit well with me, and I'm not sure it would sit that well with him either.
Yeah. I, I mean, I guess he might argue that he is taking pictures of reality. He's just playing with them a bit, you
Well,
know?
that's why I've come back to this image because we just bypassed it completely, and I don't want to because this
I
is
keep trying
one
to
of
figure
those.
out how to, is this a reflection as well, or how did he do this? Do we know?
No, I think it's just again trick of the light. The silhouetted form has been.
It's so bright in the background that it flared in the lens or something?
Yeah, and I think that is all it is. And if anyone does care to do this, as I mentioned already, Illuminated Man doesn't do the same thing. It doesn't narrow down the form, but it does
Yeah.
completely obliterate the face with just a point of light. And there was no actual trick in that down to him. It really
Yeah.
was just as it happened in the moment.
You know
I,
what's interesting about it though, to some extent, is that Dwayne seems like he's the kind of person who will shoot, 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 and he will choose the one that somebody like me would throw out. Would be his select would be the one that I would remove. Does that make sense?
yeah, what does that say about you, Beth?
Well, it says that I'm a not as good a photographer as Dwayne Michals, but like, but no,
No,
it says that what I'm looking for is the things that make me feel comfortable, not the things that make me feel uncomfortable.
so does his work make you feel uncomfortable?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Again, maybe we're a bit rusty. Why? What is it?
I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it makes me uncomfortable because I don't see the things that he sees, or if knowing that those things exist in the things that I see and I don't see them makes me uncomfortable. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's that I am uncomfortable for feeling less than, or if I'm uncomfortable for the uncertainty that his worldview allows to invade into my worldview, you know? Because it
It's
feels sometimes it does feel like uncertainty. I know, just bouncing off this the second slide you had, and I don't mean to be playing with the Heisenberg angle, but like there is this element of it's like the cat in the Matrix movies. It's like the glitch. You know what I mean? Like a lot of his stuff has to do with like the thing that you. It's the mistake becomes the subject. You know. and the odd thing, the example that proves the rule, that example is the thing that he's looking for, it seems like.
No,
Um,
that's, you know, I mean, I look at this and I see the fact of it.
you see, okay, like the objective fact of it. You don't see it as these things as sort of outside the bounds of normal.
As I was going to say, I see the fact of it, but it triggers me. So in me, I can, as you say, objectively observe something. I see the fact. I can see the fact in as much as I might not understand the reference to Dr. Heisenberg. I
Okay,
might not know about physics. I might not know about, you know, the ghost in the machine. I might not know what that reference is,
sure.
but I understand the fact of the photograph.
Okay, got it.
But for me, I mean, modern vernacular tells me it's a trigger. I'm triggered in a way that tells me that this is about something that is not to do with always ghosts and specters, but it's to do with the absurdity and the oddity of just being human. There's nothing about Michaels's work that is not about being human.
No, that's true. But in some ways it's like about the absurdity of life more than it is about, it's trying to find that thing that doesn't fit in to
Mm.
me. I forgot about this one.
Well, this is also part of a series, but I've just picked this one out.
Yep.
So spirit leaves the body. I think there are
Yeah. So like,
images.
yeah, even double exposures, or probably double exposure. The guy could have moved, but let's say double exposure for the lack of. Um,
I mean, it could seem in a lot of this work that he is obsessed with death, but it just always again seems to me that he's actually obsessed with life.
I was going to say, I think anybody's obsession with death is really an obsession with life. Yeah.
And I don't think that's him trying to be cute or even trying to be clever. I think this is just it. It just seems as if, though he has this extraordinarily long career in which he's been successful in lots of ways, he's still interested by the life through his lens.
Yeah. Although now, I mean, more recently, he made a bunch of weird video work too. He does that as well.
Mm.
So he's really,
He's very vocal, you know. I mean, he's got a lot of, you can find out a lot about Michaels. That's also something. He's made himself really available, I think, over the years to interviewers. And even if he has been quite cantankerous, he's always been there. You know, if you want to know about him, if you want to find out about him,
yeah,
you know, people have written widely on him. Again, people maybe in circles that would know anyway,
yep.
but there's heaps of stuff to read and to watch.
You almost would think that someone who makes work like this would be mysterious and hard to get a hold of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he feels like he'd be the kind of person who says, "I don't answer questions. My work speaks for itself." You know what I mean? You could see him as one of those people too.
Yeah, I mean, he's described as being a cinematic storyteller.
Sure.
Work is about memory and desire and mortality. You
Yeah,
know,
but what does any of that mean? That's like saying my work's about the world. It's like, well, everybody's work is about all those things to some extent, isn't it?
it is, but again, this is about what I was saying to do with seeing the fact of it. There's Michaels's work brings a kind of collision of elements that other artists sometimes try to separate out.
Yeah, I could see that.
And the fact of Michaels's work is that hmm, it's not that he's commanding necessarily a collision of these things, but that he's there for them.
Yeah. Yeah, his I know that he does plan a lot of his work to some extent,
Hmm.
but it almost feels like he happens upon it.
I think this is his extraordinary intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's if he has a gift, that's it. He makes things that are not spontaneous feel spontaneous. um, almost like a what is the what is the term? The old school term for like spontaneous sponto, where life comes out of a pile of leaves. That whole idea. I forget the term. It's the idea that like we think that maggots just come from rotting meat, not that flies lay eggs in there, and that's where it comes from. I forget that. That's gonna drive me crazy. I'll look it up. But it's kind of his work kind of feels like that, where it's tricking you into thinking that it's almost that it's less something less than it is in order to make you more impressed by it. It's really neat. It's like a neat idea. He's
Mm.
also obsessed with, I mean, he loves beauty. He loves beautiful men. I mean, there's definitely like an element of that.
There's a lovely anecdote actually about why he became a photographer, and I'm probably going to do a disservice because I can't remember the exact phrase. But he's quite well traveled, and even in
Hmm.
his youth, he was very well traveled. And apparently, he met a really, really beautiful Russian man,
Okay.
really beautiful. And for some reason or another, the only Russian he knew was, "Can I take your photograph?"
Of course it was.
Or something, it's something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. And so that's what started it. So this was the only means with which he could essentially make a connection with this kind of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
godlike um, Russian man. I don't know if that was maybe in Russia or if it was in the US. I don't know where it
Sure.
was, but it just seemed so kind of hilarious and probable.
But doesn't it also feel like that comes from like a simpler time, where
Well,
where
I
where
mean,
even making a photograph was a more special thing, you know?
well, there's always a kind of it's not detached in Michael's work, but there's always a kind of coolness that could be of anywhere.
Yeah, true.
So where you're talking about it belonging to or his way of being is sort of a different time. It's of really no time.
Do you think you get along with him based upon what you've seen?
Well, never meet your heroes. I
I've met
would
a couple of my heroes and it's been awesome. So,
I would say that Michael's for me is pretty important, pretty
yeah.
special. And I think when I see the work and I think about what it means for me and I grapple with Michael's, because also, Michael's is actually very present in his own work,
Yep.
not just like any artist is, but actually often is in the photograph or,
Hmm.
for whatever reason we see him, we have
Yep.
access to him. I do think that I would absolutely love him, but it frightens me that I might meet him and not just that I would bore him, but that I would just be so invisible and meaningless to him. It's a curious
Because
thing.
you're a woman or because how do you mean?
No, I think to say it's because I'm a woman would be me taking too much of anecdotes that don't belong to
Sure.
me. Um, just more that I think this person to me seems very smart.
Yeah.
And I don't particularly like to be overawed by people so much that I want to vomit. But I might
Maybe
be with him.
maybe he is that smart, or maybe him making you think that he's that smart is part of his charm.
Yeah, but that's smart anyway. That's like
Yeah,
saying,
sure.
someone's streetwise, but they can't do math. It's
Yeah.
just different. He's
Yeah.
just different. I love him.
Yeah. I'll if I speak to him, I'll let him know.
Oh, well, thanks so much. It's
No
who do
problem.
you know what obviously in this show. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
I think that next time we should definitely talk about Mr. McCall in Solid
Okay.
Light.
Absolutely.